Hello, everybody, and welcome to Just Talking. Gwenda Lambert here, back with the lovely and talented Heather Lacey, wearing red for the festive season. Yum! Today we're covering a topic, and it's really interesting because a lot of our beliefs come from media. They come from stories that are told and how they're told. And since we're coming up to Christmas, there's two of them that are huge in demonstrating this. The first one, of course, is Scrooge, right? He has, things. He has death. He has heartbreak. He has a bunch of emotional times that he doesn't process, is not encouraged to process. And that turns him into Scrooge. Right. And so we get the whole night that he goes through. And so that's one movie that we want to look at. The other movie that's really kind of interesting along the same lines of how we get our beliefs in how we deal with grief or loss, because loss, the one thing in Scrooge is that he did have the heartbreak of the girl that got away. And it was because he couldn't get into his heart, right? He couldn't. Yeah. And so let's just start with that movie. So that's the one thing that I love about that movie is that even in 1937, is that the original Alastair Sims version?
So I'm not sure the date, but it's something like that.
You still see, again, the wealth part is put forward almost as evil as well. And then his heartbreak is fodder for the movie. And yet he has to go through this all on his own, right? There's nobody that helps him other than these ghosts. So other than the regrets we have, other than, otherworldly influences that come to point things out to him. And so, I mean, I think the important part there is that we don't understand. We look at that movie, it's a great movie, but it would be, I think, a lot. Anyways, my thing is that even in that movie, we're subtly told, because nobody talks about it, that money is everything, or wealth. We're taught to take care of our feelings alone. Yeah. Replace the loss. So in other words, workaholism comes from somebody that you love and respect dies, and you throw yourself into work. That could also be exercise. It could be any other form of energy relieving behavior. And yeah, I love Scrooge, but I mean, but you start watching those movies when you're this high to a grasshopper, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
What do you think, Heather? We'll just start here.
I think, yeah, you're talking about the original Scrooge and even some of the other incarnations a little later. There's definitely that focus for him as a person that, he's gone through the loss of his sister, and then he throws himself into becoming what he believes is a better person, right? He's got to make more money. He's got to, get more status in society, and he can't get married because he doesn't feel that he can provide well enough at that point in time. And he can't allow himself to go that route until he's reached a certain level in his own head, right, financially. And so yes, that relationship fails and falls apart, and because his focus is work and money and all that kind of stuff. And yes, we see that, and we see in Scrooge, you do see that drives him to end up being not a very nice person, but you also see that on some level is reinforced as a good thing, right? Like that it's not a bad thing that he needs to be more financially stable. It's not a bad, that's and that is a belief that a lot of people hold, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yes, we want to be financially stable, but hopefully not at the expense of your other relationships in your life, right? But you're right. I think there's that level that you see that from the time you're young, and a lot of other movies that have that same message in there, is that especially the be strong for others, or the you have to handle it on your own, right? Like that's the thing, right? You have to do it all on your own. Uh there's a couple of newer versions of Scrooge out that I found very interesting. There's an animated version that just came out on Netflix, I think it is. And it's, what I find very interesting about the old movies is that, at the end, after his revelation, he's like, okay, go and buy this and send this and do that and da 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 da. But he's still really doing it all alone, right? He's still really doing it all alone. And in the animated version that I just saw last week, it's he gets a group of kids, street urchins, who he has previously, been nasty with, and he has them help him and decorate the table, and he throws dinner at his house.
Nice.
He doesn't go to, see Tiny Tim. They all come to his mansion, right? And have dinner there. And he has all these like little street urchins helping him throw up decorations, helping him set the table, helping him do all that. And then he pays them at the end, and he's like, and you're going to stay for dinner too, right? And they're like, yeah, that would be great. Like, so he creates that sense, they create that sense of community around him, which I found was really kind of more uplifting and great, because in the original and in the older versions, yeah, he might be kind of what people might call fixed, right? But he's still alone. He's still doing it alone. And although he's going to have some better relationships, they still leave him in that situation where he's not necessarily creating a huge community around him.
Right.
He's making some inroads into some families, but they still leave him alone in the end, right? Yes. And I just found it really, and I hadn't really thought about it until I saw this movie. Right, when I saw this movie and I saw the ending, and I was like, yeah, like everybody is at his house, and he's got like his nephew was there, and his like the whole, everybody that's involved is in the one place and all together and celebrating. And I just thought that was a really interesting thing in my own head, to realize that, yeah, in previous versions he's on his own.
And you're right. And the thing that is backed up in that is Bob Cratchit is poor.
Yeah.
And it's again, it instills almost the subtle saying that if you're a nice person, nice guys finish last,
right,
all that kind of stuff, and that money is the root of all evil. And because we're also talking about our energetic relationship with money, and how that's also demonstrated in that. And this is a perfect segue into the next movie, which is It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
Which the reason I love that movie is because there's a lot of times where we don't even understand how much that movie is influencing us. But you get George, which is taught, like his whole life is be strong for others. His whole life is take care of others. Now, let's be perfectly clear. It's okay to support other people. It's okay to make money. It's okay. But it's really the part that I know we just talked about before, and slightly changed even the tenor of this filming, is the fact that emotional honesty that we need to have with ourselves. We know when we're running away from something in our heart. Yeah. We know when to make a choice that may be good for us. Sometimes other people are not going to be happy with that. But if we don't make that choice, or at least have that discussion, then that's going into, when we talk about the grief recovery method, we talk about this backpack from when we're kids. Yeah. And we have those things, and these little pebbles go into this backpack since we're kids. The fact that you have to do it on your own, which George was shown, Then there's the responsibility, and this is just touching lightly on the where are you in the born chain? Like when you're first born, you're going to take over the family business, or you're going to have this expectation. And even if you do or don't want that, and some of the hardest things, especially like with George, at the end of it, even they've got all these people that are coming that he's helped. It's not that he wouldn't have helped them, but the thing is, there is this thing called fate. There is a thing where opportunities present themselves to us. But when it comes to following our heart, we have to be able to follow our intuition too, right? We have to be able to follow what's good for us and be emotionally honest. And so the great part about that movie is that by showing him what it would have been if he wasn't there, it's still leaving the onus on him to be strong for everybody. So we're still reinforcing. I love that movie. I think it's great. Gabriel gets his wings at the end. Everybody shows up. I still love the Buffalo Girl. Why don't you come out tonight? I love all that stuff, right? But the theme of the movie is still he had to do it alone. He was doing it for his family. So we're even looking at the way men process emotions these days. And those are the movies you're growing up with. It's still telling you that you're responsible for your whole family instead of, and I know men are protect and provide, and that's again a whole other conversation, but it's also about the fact that we work better when we work together, right? And when we're emotionally honest, right? When you're strong, being strong for somebody else, then you're never being strong for yourself. You're never actually, your inner circle starts with you. And that's what I would like to see more of. And I'm just going to ask you, Heather, how do you feel about what I've just said there?
I agree with It's a Wonderful Life. I think, as you say, a lot of it is about him being strong for other people and his family and taking care of other people, and very much not living for himself. Even though he might have made those choices, he's very much living for other people. And even at the end of the movie, it's a ton of gratitude, and I think it's important. We all, gratitude is important, and I'm grateful for many things in my life, but that doesn't mean that there aren't things that suck, right? Whereas with things like It's a Wonderful Life, everything is fixed and everything is great and everything is wonderful and everything is perfect at the end. And that's not how life works. And it just reinforces that belief for a lot of people of that this is what I should attain. I need to be attaining this level of life, and that's not reality, right? And so many movies have that level of, you're going to do this, and then you're going to have this goal at the end, and it's never that. Life is this. Life is never, and it doesn't allow for that. In the end, it doesn't allow for that negative, right? It's all about everything's great, everything's wonderful, I have such great people around me, I have such great things, which is all amazing, and definitely, yes, you want that and you want to be grateful for that. Doesn't mean that you can't say it sucks that I need to get money from you to help me out. Right? That yes, it's grateful that all these people are giving me money, but there's a level for most human beings where you say, I hate the fact that I have to do that. I hate the fact that I need to ask. I'm grateful that you're doing it. I'm grateful that you're giving it to me. I'm grateful that you're not, you're giving it to me without strings. Grateful for that. But there's a level of our human nature that says, I don't want to do that. But we don't get to acknowledge that in a movie like It's a Wonderful Life, or most movies. You don't get to acknowledge that downside. So I just, in a totally non-Christmas movie, I watched Pinocchio last night, the
live one,
the Del Toro one, the Guillermo del Toro, so it's a little bit darker, but there's a whole thing at the beginning where Geppetto loses his real son, his physical live son, and then creates Pinocchio, out, and literally he's replacing him. He's hit rock bottom, and he says, I'm going to replace my son. Like, literally, he's like, uses those words, I'm going to make him again. Right. And your heart breaks, because you know exactly what he's doing. Right. And you just kind of sit there and you're like, oh my God, this guy he's trying to find a way to replace what he's lost. And a good portion of the movie goes through that concept of, why are you not more like Carlo, his son? Why are you not more like, and there's again a conversation where it's like, I'm not Carlo. But he's trying to replace him, right? He's trying to replace him. And it's just fascinating to see that broken down into that, that level. Because again, if the movie like Pinocchio, you're just like, I've made this person who is going to be part of my life, and everything's going to be great. And yes, there's some trials and tribulations, but in the end, it's all great. Exactly. Whereas this version is a little bit more on that, nitty gritty and into those emotional sides of things that, and even Pinocchio, he does a couple of things and he's like, okay, I'm going to go off. It's set in Italy wartime. And he's like, I'm going to go off to war or I'm going to go off to work in the puppet show. And they're going to send my dad, Geppetto, money.
The money.
Yeah. Right. I'm going to do this for him. Right. It's just like, there's all of those levels and I think it's great when we see a movie like that breaks those down, because I think there's a lot of movies that gloss over those and just work on you need to be strong. You need to do this. You need to fix that. You need to replace this. You have a breakup, you get a new person, like it's like, and you get the new person, and the other relationships just seems to magically be disappeared and fine, right? Like, there's like that heartache seems to totally disappear when the new person shows up, right? And you're just like, that's not the way life works. But that is what we're socialized to believe, because we see that, as you say, time and time again in the media.
Yeah. And that's exactly, I mean, that's the one thing, is when you get the rom-coms and they're really great, you start out with heartbreak, and you hear, oh, the best way to get over somebody is get under somebody. And right. and I, even when we're talking about animals, right? It's like, and animals, usually more caringly taken care of at the end of life than humans, but yeah. which is good in some cases. But it's like the whole fact that the first thing is, are you going to replace? And it's like, that animal had character. I mean, there's no two cats that are the same. There's no two, the number of stories literally in this last week of people that get kittens after they've had a full grown cat. It's like, oh, I'm never doing that again, because it's a whole different relationship and a whole different type of energy. So, and one of the things that I wanted to, because we are sort of keeping this about movies, is that I can remember years ago, I don't know how long ago this movie came out, and it was called Lars and the Real Girl. And it's a Ryan Gosling movie. It's got a whole bunch of other fabulous actors in it as well. But Lars, played by Ryan Gosling, was this emotionally challenged guy. His mother dies. And it's a beautiful movie because it does show the intricacies. He couldn't really process what was going on. He had to have his routines. He had to, have things sort of like a Rain Man kind of thing, but not the same way, for those who haven't seen the movie. And so he ends up ordering a sex doll, not for that, but she was his girlfriend. And the wonderful part was, you have like his therapist is talking to the people around him and going, well, this is what's going on. And it's like, okay, so what do we do? How can we support him as he moves through this emotional time? How can we show him that he's not alone? How can we, and it's a beautiful portrayal. And now that's the whole thing, is even when we talk about movies that get really, they're dramatized a lot of times, but we do call them heavy movies. We do call them. And so this is even the way we're referring to ourselves as, oh, so when I go into those really powerful emotions, it can also be joy. You can be times when you're ecstatic and you're almost like, oh my God, this is like fabulous. I feel like I'm, on top of the world. That can also be as scary for people. But,
Mm, yeah.
the whole thing is that, are we feeling the whole spectrum? Right.
Yeah.
And so having those movies where we can look into the abyss and still come out on the other side and know that it's part of the human experience, right? And I think that the one thing about Christmas movies is it's Christmas, right? And Christ was born again and all that kind of stuff, and uh the whole thing of like, it's almost like your happiness and your joy are out of your control, when
Right.
the biggest blessing you can do for yourself is be emotionally honest. Maybe not with the people in your life, like we've talked about forgiveness here, that it's not that you should aim for forgiveness. Absolutely. You should aim for anything that allows you to disconnect from that other human experience. But it's like, if you don't feel that right now today, that's okay too. And
Yeah.
you definitely don't want to go up to somebody that you think they've wronged you. You can go up to them and talk about, I feel this way, which is exactly what you talked about when it comes to these movies. If something happened and you could have said to your parents, well, this is what I'm feeling, and they go, oh yeah, that's tough. How can we help you?
Yeah.
Or don't say anything at all. Just let me talk and figure it out for myself. And like Lars and the Real Girl, let's support this process of this adult man who doesn't have the emotional ability to process as quickly as everybody else.
Yeah.
Let's support him. If he says this is his girlfriend, we treat her like a human. We treat her like she's, and this is the sad part when it comes to this kind of judgment. When it comes to this kind of judgment, is that a lot of times it's just believing like you have somebody else that you're talking to, that somebody
Right.
else is there to listen and somebody else is there to hear, and that there is no judgment. And
Yeah.
and then you throw in Christmas, which is like, oh, the birth of the guy that's going to save us. And it's like, we need to be able to support each other in just getting through this ride.
Right. Yeah.
So
I think one of the key things about emotional honesty, that is important for people to understand, is that it's not necessarily about being emotionally honest with everybody around you.
mhm.
It's not about me telling you, Gwenda, exactly what I think about you. That's not what emotional honesty is, per se. Emotional honesty is being emotionally honest with yourself. It's you saying to yourself, really, what do I really feel about this moment, about this situation, about this? Am I happy? Am I sad? Am I both? And that's okay too, right? Like, you're allowed to have a mix of emotions. That's what grief is a mix of emotions. So you're allowed to be happy in a moment but sad. You're allowed to be happy that you're celebrating with family but sad because somebody's not there, right? Like, that's allowed. And I think that's the key, is that we're not emotionally honest with ourselves, because we'll go to that holiday party or that service or whatever, and everybody's like, oh, we're all supposed to be happy, we're all supposed to be calm and peaceful, and you don't necessarily have to tell everybody else that you don't feel like that, but you need to be able to tell yourself. And a lot of times we go to those things and we're like, no, I feel fine, I'm good, I'm fine, everybody's happy, I'm happy too, da, 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 da. And you're not being emotionally honest with yourself, and allowing yourself to say, yeah, I'm happy, but I'm also annoyed, I'm also pissed, I'm also sad, I'm also angry, I'm also whatever those things are, right? We don't allow ourselves to tell ourselves that. And part of it comes back to the judgment, is because we believe we're not supposed to. We're not supposed to feel like that. So we say, I'm fine. And no, I don't feel like that because I'm not supposed to feel like that. I'm supposed to feel like this. So that's how I'm going to feel. And again, as we've said, reinforced by society as a whole, and the media culture and movies definitely can reinforce that, for sure, because that's how the happy ending movies, they're always a happy ending, right? And it's always perfect, and it's never an in-between ending.
No.
I can't think of one offhand, but I do love movies that have that ending that's not clear.
Yep.
right? That it kind of ends. It's the slice of life movie that just kind of ends, and you don't know what's happened afterwards or how things, and it's not tied up in a neat little bow, because that is how life works, right? As much as we might like it to tie up in a neat little bow, it doesn't. And that's the thing that I think most people can't do or don't want to do, is to be emotionally honest with themselves and say, this is how I feel in this moment. And again, it doesn't, not about telling somebody else necessarily. It's just about being able to admit that to yourself sometimes.
Yeah. And a lot of times, I know we're here, we are yammering. I know we're somewhere close to going over, and we can do like even a whole show specifically just about emotional honesty, because that's, again, it's like,
Yeah.
I know that, like, as a little fire baby, I know there's stuff that comes out of my mouth, and it's like, as soon as it's out, it's like, oh man, I really wish, and no matter how I try at 59 years old to manage all my thoughts, there's just sometimes where stuff comes out. The thing I'm better at is not beating myself up, because I've been like this my whole life. So and that's not, again, I think the biggest gift that we can have for ourselves and others is like, am I being dicky in this situation? It doesn't mean I'm an ass.
Yeah.
It means I'm acting like an ass. Well, what do I want to do differently? Like, one thing, for instance, just from last night, I was in the middle of busyness that popped up just before I went to go into a social engagement. And I didn't take that time to separate the two. And
Right.
I know I took that busyness chaos with me. And it's just really, this is where people like the Anthony Robbins and Tony Robbins and whatever, and they all talk about emotional states. This is the importance. That's a subtle one. It wasn't any end of life or anything huge. It was just, I was in chaos. So to be able, and let's talk about that when, like, well, we'll talk about that another time, because again, we're going on and on, but it's like, if you can take that moment to go, okay, see, I'm feeling a little disheveled. I'm going to do a little bit of breath work here.
Yeah.
Before I go in and meet my neighbors, and before I go in and do this. So again, I think it's, and this is one of the things, everything is a practice, right? Everything is a practice. It's not about ignoring the states that may not be pretty. Like, that's why I say when we talk and we're doing, grief recovery, it's like, hand on heart, what you were feeling at that time. Nobody needs to know the story, but you have to sort of own that that's where you were, and own that that's who you were at that time. It doesn't mean that that's who you are forever, but it's like, I need to be able to be comfortable enough in my own skin, know that I'm worthy of having whatever feeling I have. And then it's my responsibility to process that and to learn to ask for help, so that I can have a Lars and the Real Girl. Wouldn't that be nice to have a community where everybody steps up? I mean, one of the hardest things is when our best friends don't give us the support in the way that we need when we've had a death or something really serious. And that's because we don't know, right? Like, it just because you can't process or be present in a certain moment, or you can't find the right words, it's just more important that you own it yourself and say, I can't support you here at this time in this way, and just get it out loud and then say that. And it's like, so, I'm here for as much as I can, but not everybody is meant to handle everything in everybody's world, to be supportive. We also have times when our emotional bandwidth is stretched, and it's like, I just don't have it in me right now. I can't support you in this, not because I don't want to, it's because I need to take care of me first.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's, any final thoughts on that kind of?
No, I completely agree with you on that. It's because that's key, right? It's the knowing, what's here, right? For us as individuals. So So to bring it back to the whole movie side of things, I would just say to anybody who's watching that if you're watching movies this holiday season, holiday movies or other movies, take a moment, maybe, after the movie and just say, is there stuff in there that is reinforcing, a belief system that's not serving me in that movie? Or is there something that I can take away from this movie that maybe is like, oh look, they did this and they and that was really important and real. Or is it complete fantasy fiction that is just got no basis in reality in terms of the emotional? And I'm not talking about I love fantasy movies, but I'm talking about the emotional the emotional crux of the movie, right? Is those characters, are they rooted in reality, right? In terms of how they're expressing themselves, and is that influencing you? And I think that's, again, we talk about this in grief recovery, is that one of the first steps is awareness, right? Awareness of what's influenced us and how it's influenced us. And so I would just say, take a moment this holiday, if you're watching TV shows, movies, whatever, any media, and see, how is that, or how has that impacted you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the biggest things is my mother, who never expressed any of that negative emotion, watched Die Hard, which is a Christmas movie, on loop. Die Hard, Lord of the Rings, total gratuitous violence.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's just, these movies are meant to make us feel.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. That's the other thing, is you don't have to watch any movies. Just put music on. Just know when you're intellectually too gone. Like, in other words, I don't want to think about anything. And just do it. Stare out the window, whatever. Do something mindless. When you are emotionally stretched, don't go to that holiday party. People will love you. And if they don't, but again, we have to be able to support each other as multifaceted emotional beings. And Christmas, I call it a Hallmark holiday. Thank God there's a Hallmark channel now, right? Where it's all, and at the end, and everybody loves, and reading Nora Roberts and Danielle Steele. That's all, as long as you know that you're doing that as an escape, and that it's not based in reality, right? That not that aspects of the story aren't true or aren't. It's to remember that, support yourself, right? This is your life. It's your life. It's your choice. So thank you, Heather, for this lovely, I know are we over 30 minutes?
I have no idea, but probably.
No idea. So anyways, we get talking and that's what happens. So love you all. We will see you. Is this your last just talking before Christmas?
I'm not sure. We haven't talked. We're supposed to do one on Christmas, so we'll see.
Well, we'll see. So probably not. Maybe we'll see you the week in between. But anyways, much love to you all. Thank you, Heather, for being here. And if you want more information about the grief recovery method, contact either of us on this channel, anywhere that you're seeing this. Okay. Have a great day. Have a Merry Christmas on behalf, or Happy Holidays.
Happy holidays.
Season, right? So
exactly.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great day.